Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners, across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight, we look into the exercise that's ongoing, the population census exercise 2024. That at the beginning, we could say it was shambolic, but it looks like now they are putting the act together to move on smoothly, and because we need that data. The government of Uganda needs that data, because data will help the government plan for the country when they know the number of people that are in Uganda. Let me introduce the Tuesday panelist that has managed to be with us, and joining us online is the CEO of Great Lake Safaris, Amos Wekesa. Thank you so much. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good evening, Patrick, man. It's been a while. And good evening, listeners.
Yes, it's been a while, but I know you are more or less like a global citizen because you keep trotting the globe.
Yes, I've realized that I need to expand my borders of Uganda. They cannot just be ending at Ugandan borders. They have to go beyond that for me to survive.
Since you're a man from the border point, you're a Wakaka man, so I'm sure you're used to crossing the border. Back in the day, you could even have done some Magendo.
I did from the age of 7 or 6.
Oh my God, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought so, considering that you're from Oaxaca.
Yeah, man, the capital city of Namisindo district, yeah.
The way how you blow for your village. So now, but sometimes you have to, because if you don't blow your trumpet, who will blow it for you?
Bro, I don't really understand this. So many people go and take pictures from Wakaka signposts. And that's how our village is tourism. You don't understand it. They will have spent money on fuel, food, what, you know? And let me tell you one thing. I come from a village called Ngezi, and yes. Among my circles now, everybody knows Ngezi. But now, let's look into this. First of all, the enumeration exercise. What has been your experience? Where were you on the 9th on the 9th May, which was the census night? Man, I sat home that whole day. First of all, I was very annoyed because I refused and put out all my appointments, thinking that next minute I was going to be counted. No single person turned up the whole day. Then I asked myself, we had a public holiday a week before, I think.
Yes.
Then we have another public holiday the following week. Now, as a businessman, I have come to a conclusion that one of our biggest challenges as a people, we do not understand how much loss we make by not working. Now, people would say, oh, but why don't you go and work? For years, I've learned that for me to work properly, other people also must work. I have to deal with banks must work. I have to deal with the staff must also work. So, actually, the whole day is dead. And I'm expected to produce results for that day. I have to pay staff for that day. So I was actually very angry and I was not very happy. Except I'm also happy that, the country has been thinking about census. Census is a very key thing for a nation. Except for me, where my skepticism is I don't believe that these people, government is counting people because they want to do something good about it. Because I've never seen any politician, whether opposition or government, waking up and saying, guy, our 36% of our population is 9 years and below. 56% of our population is 18 years and below. Over 70% of our population is less than 40 years old. And I do not see anybody who consistently wakes up and says by 2050, Uganda will have a population of 100 million people. And therefore, we need to think, plan for this population that we're thinking about. I don't see anybody who thinks beyond 5 years in politics, whether opposition and government. Even now, I hope that after we have had this census, that someone wakes up and actually sits and thinks, what does 100 million Ugandans in 2050 actually mean? In terms of education, in terms of jobs, in terms of health, in terms of transport, where are these people going to live? And what should we do now before that time comes?
Okay, so we're going to get into the data, but you didn't conclude. Were you eventually enumerated?
I have not been counted up to today.
My
Friday was wasted. I've not been home. Maybe they came to count people, but I have not been counted as someone. I sat home on a Saturday thinking they will come. I sat home on a Sunday thinking they will come. Up to today, I have not been counted. But
so you speak like a man who does not have confidence that the government of Uganda is going to use the data that is being collected this time around in 2024 to put that data to better use for the planning for the people of Uganda. Give it to them that maybe this time around they can use that data for the purpose of planning. After all, don't we have even the Vision 2040? We have so many visions, and the 2030 seems to be such a milestone kind of year because many programs have to turn out for better in 2030, including the SDGs. Why are you skeptical about Uganda using the data for better?
Let me tell you, if we were using the data, and I think we have had a discussion with you. Do you know when the underground train was thought about in
England, maybe 100 years, more than 100 years back?
It was 1890s. That is how I think implementation was about. It was in 1890s. 1890s, they knew one day the population of the UK would be massive. They planned an underground
railway network.
Railway network. Now, today, imagine London without the underground. It will be one of the biggest messes you have ever come across in life. Or places like Delhi, it's a mess, Now, as Uganda, we have a chance to think. Even the idea of government wanting to create cities was such a fantastic idea. But you can clearly, it was just a political move. You cannot say I can go to Guru and say it's a capital. I mean, it's a city. I can't go to Hoima and say it's a city. These are village towns if you compare them to, say, Kenya. I mean, Kenya is now having its fourth city. Before, Kisumu is becoming, not Kisumu, Kisumu is already a city. But Nakuru has applied to be the fourth city of Kenya, right? But Nakuru leadership has to show that, one, they have enough economic activity to be able to call a capital city, that they can create enough jobs, that they can do things. They had to actually prove as leadership of Nakuru. And of course now, they have an airport even in Nakuru that is coming up. And Nakuru is only 150 kilometers away from Eldoret, which also has an airport, which now is having all Emirates flying into Eldoret, direct flights out of Nairobi to Eldoret. So we must think as a people and act well. Otherwise, we're setting up.
I'm sure Ugandans listening to you are saying, what the heck? We have a wealth of cities in this country. In every region, we have like 2 or 3.
I always tell people that Uganda is blessed with 3 things. Number 1 is that we have good food. Number 2, that we have good weather. Number 3, that we're also ignorant of what is happening around us. That is a very nice position to be in. If we knew, we would be very angry about certain situations, And statistics are not on our side. The counting is such a brilliant idea, but we need to be sure we need to engage our leadership to make sure that counting makes sense, that we figure out what figures actually mean.
Okay. Amos, just hold on to your point, Amos. I want to introduce another guest who has joined us in the studio. I have the chairperson of the National Physical Planning Board, a lecturer at Makerere University, Amanda Ngabirano. Thank you so much for joining us, Amanda. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Patrick, and good evening, listener.
And we have Amos there.
Hi, Amos.
Yeah, Amanda had forgotten to say hello to me.
No, I can't forget you. It was just the right time.
So now, Amanda, I know you're a person who thinks about planning, being organized, including even how the cities should look like. You had a beautiful idea, though it has not been, executed the way it was. I'm talking about, for example, the non-motorized transport corridor. That's a beautiful place. But what do you make of this census exercise? The starting could have been shambolic, but do we have a history of really using data in this country to serve the population? Because many people would say, no, we don't. What would you say?
When we were doing the land use balance sheet,
Okay.
the data collection, and trying to allocate what function is covering which percentage of our land, we were surprised to see that we actually don't have land that we think we have.
We don't have land?
Yes. So if we have data, it helps us to plan everything. And it starts with people, it starts with land, and all that information.
You seem to suggest that we have not been having data at all, because this is not going to be the first census. By the way, in between the 10-year gap before another census is done, there's a lot of other research and census that is conducted.
You know why I mentioned about that case of that data? The data is actually, people are saying, is this data correct? Is it accurate? When was it collected? So it is very important to update the data and know which resources you're working with. If you have wrong data, most likely you're not going to do the right thing. But when you look at the land usage right now and the population growth, the urbanization rate, the resources that we have, the opportunities we have as a country, the blessings from God we have as nature has given us, if we don't really get the data, we are not going to do the right thing.
Let me come back to you, Amos, because earlier you talked about this is quite a young country. Almost the majority of the people in this country are children. But there are many who are saying, look, that could also be an advantage. Give us another 15 years. In fact, the population scientists call it the demographic dividend, where we have to benefit from a huge population of young and energetic ones. Do you think we shall get that dividend, Amos?
No. Actually, population growth is such a great opportunity because, one, I'm sure you're hearing about the West. By 2050, if you look at, for example, Germany, almost 10,000 small businesses are closing because there is no one to inherit and take the businesses further. So the population in the West is actually dwindling. That's why you have countries like Canada, Australia, taking in professionals. Now, where we go wrong as a country is the lack of understanding that we are part of the universe and that we need to understand how we actually plug into the universe in order to compete. Look at, for example, Kenya. The Kenyan President Ruto went and discussed and negotiated with the German government to be able to send 250,000 professionals in different fields to Germany within the next 10 years. They went to South Korea and said, we have about 10,000 Kenyans. We want to bring in over 15 extra thousand Kenyans. So, but in that, they have techniques that are training people in different spheres and areas those countries will need. Our UP is not thinking in that direction. I mean, even us internally here, to get an artisan who does a good job is almost impossible. And for countries to grow and countries to be relevant, the people that you train must be people that actually will be able to compete at international level. Even now, even when the countries like the US and Europe, and countries in Europe, they are looking for professionals, people that will take the economy further because it is very critical. I don't think that we are preparing our population to be able to compete. That's why the majority of our exports of Ugandans is not for professional jobs. It's mainly for housekeeping. Even university graduates are becoming housekeepers maids in the Middle East. So if you don't think well, and what shocks me is that whether it's parliament or public service, you are not seeing someone who is able to understand that we need to compete. I don't know, Patrick, it's not just about only the West. Look at our neighbors. I have a chance to travel quite often, and I look at a country like Tanzania. Tanzania has more opportunities than, for example, the educated population. And if we educated the right brain, I can tell you, for example, this season, from now until October, Tanzania has 3 major problems. One is that they don't have enough guides. We have so many Ugandans who can drive and can speak English. I wish such a time we had trained so many people and say, Tanzania, I know you're running short of tour guides. Can we be able, as a country, to bring tour guides to work in your country? So it's the thinking, it's the knowledge of the leadership. If the leaders don't have knowledge, the people perish.
All right. Amos Wekesa, I want to thank you so much. Understand you have pressing needs that will need you to move on. We want to thank you for the value you have added, for the information you've given. You've always been very passionate. You never lose an opportunity to talk about tourism. Somehow you bring it in.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much. The issues you have raised, Amanda will also maybe respond to them as I try to get other questions. And later we shall also be joined by Mr. John Walugembe. And towards the end of the show, we shall open the line so that you two who is listening can have an opportunity to have your say. We'll be right back.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and so we now in the studio have Amanda Ngabirano, Chairperson, National Fiscal Planning Board, lecturer at Makerere University. You are so passionate about planning.
Yes.
And I don't know, Amos was skeptical about whether Uganda can actually use data for development. But he has also raised a number of issues. Your take on what you've listened from him, where do you agree and where don't you?
I think we have a huge, rightly, like he mentioned, we have a huge informal sector.
Yes.
But I don't also agree that our people don't have the capacity to do things. We have the capacity to deliver professionally. What we might not be having right now, for instance, our fiscal planners, what they may not be having is the equipment, the budgeting, the capacity, the numbers, the staffing. But we have the professionals who can do these things. That's one thing.
But you can have all these things, the money and the skill, but also there's an element of discipline. That we're supposed to have this here, and then people just in total disregard do the opposite.
But there's
we lack that discipline.
That trend is self-reinforcing. It's actually a dangerous. It can be a syndrome because it will repeat itself. So what we have to do, each structure that we are responsible for, we must break that trend that we are talking about. I would like him to know that we have the professionals, but there are some things we need to fix. But the people we have. Then the other thing is that he should celebrate, because now we have the National Fiscal Development Plan.
Oh yes, which was launched recently.
Recently, just 3 weeks ago. And this is the first we have had in the country. This plan has several pillars, and one of them is tourism. I would like him to know that tourism is a strong pillar, that with the increasing population, the urbanization rate, even the tourism sites are at a risk. There's immense pressure on every land use, every function. The shopping areas, the wetlands, the tourism areas. People are attacking everything because they need to invest. There's a fight between growth, economic growth, employment, like he mentioned. People need jobs. And that's why we're having people running.
And maybe because we are using the environment, harnessing it like our forefathers did. We need to start harnessing what we have differently. Applying more of technology will maybe save the environment. We even give us more dividends.
Actually, I would like to interest everybody to read the National Fiscal Development Plan and understand it. Technology is one of the pillars. And Amos was talking about the mindset of the people, which is also a pillar of human capital development. If you talk about technology, look at the population growth in our... You don't believe that we have cities, right? I know your position about this. Yeah. Look at the population growth in our urban areas, and then also in the rural areas. And we have a place like Karamoja. Really, you drive through Karamoja, it's dark. And the heat there is a lot, but there's no solar energy. Technology is very key.
Why are you taking that darkness to as far as Karamoja? Yet right here on Kampala Road, which is like the heart of the city.
Is it dark?
I'm telling you, the street lights that are there.
Every place is lit.
No, it should be better than that.
It's lit.
You could be marked on Kampala Road because some places are not well lit.
Now we are looking at a bigger picture. If you look at the country and how we are growing, the northern part of this country is where we need to strategically position ourselves. And that's why I'm bringing it as an example. You can talk about here in your neighborhood, but if you're looking at the future of real change, real growth, you need a place where you can actually not manipulate, but have the room big enough and an opportunity to actually
bring out something
for the country. And that's the northern part. When you look at the mindset aspect that Amos was talking about, it's human capital development. And this is done through the normal education system that we have, but also the mindset change. Today afternoon, we were discussing at KCC about designs, road designs. You design a good road. You have traffic lights. You have signals. But then people abuse them. Why? There's an element of education that is supposed to follow the engineering. Then you need enforcement. So the human capital development has to be part of the whole story. Then also to come to, again, lastly on Amos's submission, the aspect of governance is very critical. He talked about leadership. If the leadership does not have a strategic vision, there's no data that will make any sense.
Okay, the biggest
That's
worry,
governance.
I've heard government people, especially in National Population Council, the Minister of Finance, talk about that, well, this population that is big, that is growing, is good. And I put the question to Amos, I also want to put it to you, that even though it's a young population, that we're going to benefit from it 10, 15 years from now in what the population scientists call the demographic dividend. Do you buy into this? We shall be able to benefit from it.
Yes, definitely, yes.
How, when this population that we have has not been invested, we have not invested into it, in skilling, in real education, even in putting the right values?
What do you mean? You just talked about the non-motorized transport corridor, which I'm proudly associated with. That is being skilled. I'm part of the population. That's an example giving you.
Yeah,
so the young people, we have the young people with the skills. They just need to have a direction of prioritization. If I know how to do something, I need a system, a structure that will support me to deliver.
But you see, because of lack of discipline and lack of values, and everybody buying into it, you see what the non-motorized transport corridor has been turned into.
That is what I talked about. You need to look at a complete picture. It's not the design alone. You need to have design, which is engineering. You have education, sensitization, human capital development,
and
mindset change, and enforcement. Now, when there's a gap, it's like building a house. One brick misses like this. You have no house.
Compromised.
It is compromised.
Let me introduce another guest who has joined us in the studio. I have Mr. John Walugembe, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick.
This population exercise began in a shambolic way, but are you optimistic that it will be done so well? But also, are you more optimistic that the data will help Uganda?
Well, that's a difficult question. We want to be optimistic because the census and the data that comes from it will benefit all of us. It will guide government strategy, and not just government, but also the private sector, to know where do we focus, what's the poor district, what's the state of water and sanitation access. So in a way, it also guides the deployment of resources by donors because they'll refer to this data to make decisions. Now, I'm, of course, disappointed by how it began, and I'm also disappointed by the response of the officials in charge, because what they've done is to become very defensive. What they ought to have done is to take accountability and say, this is what went wrong, this is what we intend to correct it, and please allow us more time and so on. And to also apologize for making Ugandans stay home and then not show up. So I think that element of accountability is still necessary to regain public trust. At the end of the day, this information is voluntarily given. So someone must trust the process in order to share this information with you. So if they already doubt you, if they already doubt the intention, if they already doubt your competence, it means you may also have a secondary problem of wrong data. You actually go to households, but because people feel that this is not a credible process, they basically share with you information that may not be very useful.
What has been our record in using data to develop the country?
Maybe interestingly, the Uganda Bureau of Statistics is one of the best on the continent.
This one,
yes,
the one that
very, very true. It's one of the best Bureau of Statistics in Africa, and in fact, for instance, it's the only Bureau of Statistics that records information on cross-border trade and stuff like that. So they've been very efficient in the past. I think what they've done this time is to rely so much on technology. You know, when you're doing something for the first time, it's best that you pilot, and I think that's why they made a mistake. They should have run a pilot, seen whatever mistakes come up, corrected those. But if you go full blast using a new technique and so on, you tend to be overwhelmed. And then, for instance, if you have an issue, technology is advantageous and disadvantageous. So someone was insinuating that there was a hack or something like that, but let's assume there is a virus. Then we lose all our data. But if you had the hard copies, it means you can always refer to them. So if I were the one, I would say, go initially with your hard copies and then digitalize these or something like that. Then it's easy for us to work with that. So I would say that their mistake was to trust so much in technology and to think that technology is the alpha and the omega in this kind of situation.
Their mistake was not to have a dry run first.
Yeah, they would have had a dry run.
All right.
And they don't seem, and I don't think they shared any kind of resource constraints. I'm told they were provided with the money, so.
Okay, John Walugembe and Amanda Ngabirano, we're going to take a break and the hot seat will be right back.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues.
KFM.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are John Walugembe, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and Amanda Ngabirano, Chairperson, National Fiscal Planning Board and lecturer at Makerere University. And we're looking at the exercise that's ongoing of collecting the data or population census 2024. Amanda, this is largely a young country in terms of age. The majority of the people in our country are young. Also, that means we have an opportunity to tap into their energy, the creativity, the ingenuity. Many things that come with being young. But for that to happen, then the people should be prepared. The young people should be prepared. You have to invest in them. You have to prepare them, have them, show them the way. And that's where we seem to lose the point. Why? Because when you look at the education system we had in the 60s, people would tell you that was the golden era of education. But now, it's kind of wobbly. Even countries that used to come to Uganda to tap into the Ugandan education, now, at the beginning of the term, they are no longer streaming into our country like they used to. What does that tell us?
Have you met someone who has told you that they used to play freely along Kampala Road, Cement Square, that they used to play at Kololo, they used to walk freely in the 1960s? Have you met them? Now, when you have this growth and urbanization, the pressure on every system is immense. And that's why for every planning, every sector, we should not sleep. We have to keep re-evaluating, monitoring, we review, and we make sure that we are matching with the changes. And that's why you're saying that the education system changed, it went down. But I don't think that that's actually what happened. What happened is that we did not consider or factor in the changes that were coming. If I give you an example right now, the young people are graduating from universities or from whichever institution. Where are they supposed to sleep? Where are they supposed to stay? Where is their housing, which they can afford and is decent enough? Are you going to get a graduate and put them in Katanga, in a slum, in a room of 30,000 shillings per month? And you want this person to walk with their head high up? There is no housing provision for them. So the direction now with the population projections, if you look, for example, at the human settlements projection, we are going to have at least 30% increment of the projected population for human settlements alone. Housing alone. That means if we are going to be 60 million people by 2040 or maybe 75 million people, it means we need housing for about 23 million people extra. And that requires projection. Now, the mistake we are making right now is not to work with the projections accordingly and quickly. Look at the border. For the last, 20 years, we have been seeing what has been happening, the gap in transportation. The projection should have been made already and public transport prioritized. which is now what is being done by government. Right now, the pressure to have public transport is quite high. Because the gap clearly, the population increase brings the demands for travel. The travel demand increases, the demand for housing increases, the demand for land uses, jobs, employment opportunities. Everything, there's pressure. So the projections help to strike that balance of planning accordingly. But I think this is a good thing that we are going to have this population available, energetic. What we need to do now is to orient strategically so that we don't lose them.
Okay. Mr. Walugembe, when I first had an opportunity to travel in India, yes, and I could see very old men, riding bicycles like border. They're very old, and then I was wondering, but back in Uganda, this border it's only for the young and energetic who do it. But now, 20-something years later, actually, they have become older. They are into their 50s, some of them. And it is just the same like I saw there. Just because in Uganda it had just started with young people, but now they have done border throughout. Some of them, not because it's their choice, but some of them is because the opportunities are not there. I'm talking about the issue of unemployment in Uganda. We are increasing every day. Over 500,000 kids are going to graduate in tertiary institutions, different certificates, diplomas, and degrees. But I'm told about 90,000 maybe can get some jobs. The rest, where do they go? How do you plan with this educated population that cannot find a job?
Okay, so I think our education system presumes that there are formal jobs that will be taken up by young people once they finish school. Unfortunately, the dynamic has changed, not just here, but in the West as well. What you're seeing is the rise of the gig economy. What you're seeing is people being more self-employed. What you're seeing is less organized labor. So we must be alive to these developments. And then we must also classify our solutions in terms of what youth are we targeting. There are youth who never went to school at all. There are youth who went to school and dropped out. There are youth who have finished university and are looking for work. Those are different types of youth. A youth who has finished university, for instance, can work in a business processing out center, can receive a skill, a polishing skill, and they can be repurposed for a completely different sector. And then, for young people who dropped out of school, maybe these can be given more hands-on skills. And also, we must move away from imparting the same technical skills, carpentry, tailoring. These are not bad things, but the demand, we must look at the market. If you look at graphic designing, how many vocational institutions are training graphic designing? No, there are very few. Instead, young people go to NASA Road and they are apprenticed in business and learn graphic design. So we must look at what does the market want, and we've always advocated for industry academia linkages, because at university, myself inclusive, that many things that I studied at university have not used, and I wonder, and unfortunately they've kept the same curriculum over the years. So how can we ensure that we are able to fine-tune curriculum in order to meet the needs of the market? And then we must also look at the young people and their attitudes. Most of them have an entitlement mindset, especially those from university. They think they know it all. They come into a business and then they think they'll take the business owner, do this. In university, I told us this, and so on and so forth. And that's why you see a lot of employers are not keen to take on university graduates. They have to take on diploma holders. They have to take on certificate holders. People are more teachable. So these are all things we must address, both from the side of the supply and also from the side of...
Amanda is a lecturer at Makerere University. And people have said we not only have a problem of unemployment, but sometimes also our university graduates are unemployable.
I don't think it's just about the graduates. The thing that Amos mentioned earlier in his submission, the attitude, the mindset, the way people want things to be done quickly, and also the way the economy has, changed. You cannot really say that the education system is to blame for what's happening. You can't, because right now we have fiscal planners. We have about 2,000 that have already graduated from Makerere University. But when you look at how many are employed in fiscal planning, there are very few. We registered recently as Society for Fiscal Planners, and we have 419 registered out of 2,000. And the country is still having a problem with planning. And they are not employed, but they are available. So it means that there's a capacity building, a staffing gap that has to be dealt with. But the professionals are there. The professionals we have, the education gaps like John mentions, definitely the curriculum cannot be the same with the changes. Technology has changed. There are new ideas, global trends. I think that adjustment, we cannot fault everything that we are going through on the education system. It's about the preparedness of addressing the population projection needs and the changes, which we have not been doing.
Okay.
But we have the capacity. If we got the right attitude, the professionals that we have right now in the country can deliver everything. Two, the informal sector. Where do you buy your shutters, your burglar proofs? Do you go to whichever?
This is Joe Card, the world of Joe Card.
Yes, it is our brothers mostly. I have not seen sisters doing that welding work, but it's our brothers doing it on the streets, and we go and support them. So there's a very good relationship between the formal and the informal world. And I see that the youth, given the fact that they want to have it back quickly, and those who did not go to school, they prefer to actually go informal. And they are doing very well. There are also those who, like John mentioned, complete their degrees, their diplomas, but they still want to survive outside their profession, and they employ themselves. I think it's an advantage that Ugandans are creative and they can do everything. That's how we ended up having Rolex, for example.
Okay, but they say Uganda is a very enterprising country, that we start so many businesses than any other. Even though, actually, I happen to have attended some discussion earlier today with Mr. Walugembe, and they're saying, look, we are not actually doing well. Looks like we're even overrated in being entrepreneurial, because at the end of the day, these enterprises die. So what do we need to do to hold, maybe, so that the enterprises can move on from maybe a $10 million thing to a $10,000 enterprise to a $100,000 to $1 million enterprise?
Okay, so most of these businesses are what I would call survivalist. So people don't start because they're real entrepreneurs. They start to survive. And then they are what I would call copy and paste businesses. That's why you go in a place and you find 10 salons and then this. So if it's supermarkets, everyone starts a supermarket. If it's pharmacies, everyone's trying pharmacies and so on. So there's no innovation. They are simply trying to start things that they think.
But I thought for every entrepreneur there is a need. There's some pressure. There is, something that pushes you to survive.
That's my point. There's no need as such. It's someone saying, if Patrick seems to be making money, if I started a similar business, I would make money. So that's because there's limited support in business idea generation. How do I identify an opportunity? How do I assess the market and things like that? So part of the issue is the entrepreneur themselves. Many young people are not prepared. So someone wants to start a garage, but they have no training in mechanics and some. They just go in and they engage in what I would call trial and error. That's why somewhere you can take your car and it gets vandalized, and you can't report anywhere that this mechanic didn't do the right thing. So there's that, the entrepreneur not being ready. The other issue is the ecosystem itself not being as positive as it should be.
John and Amanda, we're going to take a break. When we come back, my producer will open the lines so that we can have maybe 2 or 3 people also to get to know what the ideas are in Uganda using data, and wow, this population census exercise 2024 can be a benefit to Uganda. We'll be right back.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues.
933 KFM.
KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Market it.
Yes.
But if some
It's easier for
KFM.
933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest this evening, I have Mr. John Walugembe and Amanda Ngabirano. This is the moment when you can have your say. Tell us what you think about the population exercise or census of 2024. But John, I had an issue. I'm thinking, if we have a growing population of young people, some of them are educated, others are fairly educated, probably the good thing in them is going to be that we are going to have leaders that we deserve. They will not be taken. They raise up and demand. They raise and demand for accountability and be a tough population that needs a very intelligent person, a very careful person to lead. And probably, I'm not saying we don't have
Which
this kind
leadership are you talking about?
I'm talking about the political leadership.
The challenge I find is that, in fact, what we see is that a lot of young people are interested in politics, but they think that politics will solve all their problems. Definitely, politics is a contributor, but what I see is an obsession with politics.
Okay, let's hear what Ugandans say. I have a call online. Hello.
Oh, Kamara.
Yes, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is from Emma. I'm calling from Nalia.
Emma in Nalia, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for the program, and we'll be back from yesterday.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's something I want to comment about there, where I will also pose a question after. You're talking about scaling the youth and unemployment, youth being educated and they don't have job opportunities. Yes, it's well and good. It is true. But how do we scale this youth which are there? We're talking about the tertiary institution. Let's say like the technical school. How many technical schools do we have? Me, I'm someone who was following the promise of the president when it was promised. He said when he passed, that was 2021. His main point was going to give us the technical school. But I think
there are technical schools in Uganda now. There are very many, almost in every sub-county now, right? Not every sub-county, but maybe in every county.
Yeah, I think there are too many.
They are there, but are they facilitating them? You know, I know one that is there, is working, but they don't have all those. You go to send someone to go and do like, let's say mechanic, but the whole school is having like only one vehicle. And you have like over 40 or 100 students doing the same course. How do you expect the students may lose morale on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. There I agree in terms of whether they have been well equipped. Okay, I have another caller online. Hello.
Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening, sir.
Thanks for the show.
You're welcome.
This is Kode.
Okay, go right ahead, Mr. Kode.
Now, for me, I have two things here. We need this census, that's true. But I don't think it's going to improve on the level of Uganda. Look at it for the past 10 years when we last had one. It has done very less impact on our lives. The politicians who are looking for the eligible voters next year, how many are saying those are the things I'm saying this angle? Finally, I agree with the lady. The issue of governance, which Mr. Amos Wekesa talked about, is a very big issue, which you need to account, all leaders have to be accountable for, so that we will have a standard and stabilize the economy. As long as the governance, our leaders are not real to Uganda, for lack of the better word, the life situations of Ugandans about to win peace.
Okay.
Even the statistics, they say Ugandans are 50 million. So what?
Okay, Mr. Kode, I want to thank you. Let me come back to you. Amanda Kode have given their views. You check, Amanda.
He's completely right, Mr. Kode, and I also agree with Emma about the vocational schools, but about what Mr. Kode has mentioned, the aspect of census is only meaningful if we are going to apply that data. And to apply that data, you need to have a structure of how things should be run. And all sectors have to be part of it. Education, tourism, water, physical planning, we all have to be part of the story because you're looking at the quality of the citizens. If the governance does not look at the quality of the citizens, I don't think that any intervention will help if we have not improved on the quality of the citizens. It's the same story I've been telling you about urbanization. We are getting many urban areas. You were talking about Butunduzi Town Council last time. And what is there in that town? What is the quality of that urbanization? So even when we have 50 million people, we need to look at the quality of the population, but also the quality of the leadership. and make sure that we align the strategic direction to ensure that the citizens actually get what they deserve.
Okay, Mr. John Walugembe, your take about some of the views I've heard from these two.
I think we need to stop emphasizing quantity and focus on quality, because that's the same mistake that was made with UPE. We shouldn't make it on the TVET level. I know the President promised a vocational institute per sub-county. I think there are now so many that in some instances they are well built, they are equipped.
Are they really equipped?
Yes, some of them are very high-tech equipment, but the problem is this. You don't have trainees. The Ugandans don't want to take their children to these institutes. They want to take them to university.
But I think that mentality is changing slowly.
No, but that's what you see, because most of them.
I'm not going to send a child for prestige. I'm going to send it to university. I want them to get a skill.
You go to these places, you go to Agago, you go to Pader, you go to wherever, you find that the population in most of these vocational institutes is too low. And then you don't have enough qualified vocational trainers. This is the second problem. So for me, I would say let's concentrate on quality.
Yeah.
And then we have this craze of turning vocational institutes into universities. We already made that mistake with Chambogo. I hear Naka Vocational is also on the way to being transformed into a university.
There have been very many universities.
We have too many universities. I think we should leave our vocational institutions to do their work. And if we need to set up more universities, the private sector should take the lead.
All right. The time is almost not on our side. So, Amanda, what's going to be your concluding remark tonight?
My concluding remark, Patrick, and the listener over here is the leaders need to prepare room for the estimated or projected population of this country. It might seem like it's a bit far-fetched, but it's actually a concern. Because if we need to create 30% of the human settlements availability, we need to create 100,000 square kilometers for arable land.
What?
Where are we going to get that extra land
100,000
square kilometers
of arable land?
Arable land. How are we going to create it? So we need to prepare for the citizens who are coming, the growth that we are facing. We also need to look at the GDP.
The solution is technology, Amanda. You just have to, whatever we're doing, we have to use technology.
Technology, but also strategically look at where the opportunities are and prioritize. This aspect of scattering resources and focusing on just a few issues, I think we need to focus now on the physical development and physical planning to ensure that our land is well utilized. And then the individualism. Lastly, Patrick, the thing that Amos was talking about is more about individualism and private interest as opposed to the public interest. This is the attitude we need from every citizen and every leader in this country. The numbers don't really matter, but the quality.
John, very, very briefly, what's going to be your parting shot?
In closing, I hope that UBOS can put it act together, focus less on PR, and make sure that the data that they present to us is credible and can be used not just by government but other actors to plan for interventions that will develop this country.
John Walugembe, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, thank you so much for your time and for your contribution. Amanda Ngabirano, Chairperson, National Physical Planning Board and Lecturer, Makerere University, thank you so much for your time and for your contribution. And you, the listener, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless Uganda.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat Tonight.